this Wednesday, the 4th of February. So look, let me know how we're doing in the chat. Let me know what you're up to today. Obviously, Wednesday. The transfer window has closed, and on to the next game. The first thing to say really is welcome to this community. This is the best community on this platform, hands down, without a shadow of a doubt. Look, the only thing we do ask is please be respectful to the community. Please be respectful to me. Be respectful to yourselves. Otherwise, the ban hammer does come out, and this is not something that we like to do. But we absolutely will do it. Second thing to say, look, I'm not a dictator of the chat. Brown Knight is straight in the house. Brown Knight is a legend of the channel already. I love the opening, buddy. So look, I'm not a dictator of this chat. You know, I really do read out your comments. This is why this show takes so long. I do wish I would have wiped my specs before I start the stream, but I don't. You know, look, sometimes we don't have to agree on certain things, and we don't. You know, I always take critique on board as well. And look, there's a reason why I'm doing the show today, because I think it's really important. Somebody on here called Kevin McGee was talking about last night was about the defensive midfielders. And he made a point about a number 6, and you know the fact that we're all talking about an Anderson and those sorts of players, a Wharton. And look, are we being led down a garden path? So I wanted to open up this debate. Now I've been looking at this, so I thought Kevin made a really good point. Henderson as well with your intros. You two have got the best intros. I love it. So look, what I wanted to do really today was kind of go in depth. And look, I've got a complete list, and I've been looking at this, and I've been looking at midfielders. I want your opinion. So what I'm going to base this on is look, we need a midfielders, right? We're not talking about the transfers here. We are having a conversation because like we do on this channel, we always do these preemptive chats, and I wanted to get it on record that us guys just have a conversation, and if these things happen or if these players suddenly become good, we have had the conversation as we always do on this channel. So look, get in there today with your list, or give me your opinions on defensive midfielders. Simon says, good afternoon, JB. Missed your stream last night. Another classic top. Oh, mate, this one is I love this top. I love these old tops. I've got another blue one up there. That's not. I mean, is it a classic top? Not for me. It may be for some, but this one, I do have the grey one on the way as well. The grey one is a hideous top, but I love it. Absolutely classic. And I do have the classic red shirt as well. So this shirt for me, I absolutely love this shirt. So really what I wanted to do this afternoon, as we all talk about midfield players, I always talk about this, and I always say, now I've been looking down the list. I've been doing some homework on these players, and we won't be able to see it in the grey one. I'll suddenly become invisible. I'll just be like a floating head. You'll just see this floating head. We have a CDM in waiting in Orozco, long-term replacement for Ugarte, and I like that as well. You know, I think when it comes to this midfield position, missed last night, no problem. It's all there anyway, right? So, you know, I think you make a good point. You know, Orozco, the only thing for me with Orozco is, look, unproven, right? But I think if we look at getting some midfield plays in, there is no rush for Orozco. You know, Orozco could come into the side and he could be the next big thing. Fingers crossed. But we don't know. So I think whilst we're almost waiting for Orozco or waiting for the young players, I think it's well worth exploring midfielders with experience, so we can bring in a Roscoe into this side and give him that experience. So I don't disagree. Do I think a Roscoe is the answer? No, I don't. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but I just don't think that a Roscoe for next season is going to come into the Premier League and suddenly be prime Casemiro. So again, I respect the view, and let's talk about that. Good managers now. If you wore the grey top, I can tell you wholly because I couldn't see the rest of you. Jamal Musiala from Munich would be a world-class addition. And yes, I do agree. Who do you think is the best striker in the Premier? Who do I think is the best striker in the Premier League? Look, if we're going for strikers, it's got to be Haaland. Look, it's got to be Haaland. I know he's on a dry patch, but it's got to be Haaland. I think this season, look, I think you've got Haaland. I think Haaland is a world-class striker. How much would Roscoe cost anyway? A Roscoe. I don't know. I really, really don't know. What do you think about Carrick? What do I think about Carrick? I think Michael Carrick is unproven. How are you, bro? I'm doing it extremely well, my friend. No, not Haaland. No, not Haaland. We have a decent strike force. Look, if I'm going based on the numbers up until now, look, I've got to give it to Haaland. Do I think we've got the best striker? No. I think we've probably in the Premier League this season got the best forward line. I don't disagree with the forwards, but I think if I'm asked, and look, it's really boring. I think the best striker is Haaland, but I don't necessarily think he's in the best vein of form. Also, I don't necessarily. I think you need sort of more of that. So look, I do agree with you. I think our forwards are, I think all round better, and we are getting more goals. So I did see that as well, Simon. I did see that Lacey got a hat trick as well. So look, Lacey for me, we've got some. I think we're starting to build up some of these younger players. We've got Roscoe. Kona. I know he's gone on loan to Lausanne. We are starting to show signs of these younger players. But Lacey for me, what a fantastic player. But look, let me answer that question. What do I think of Carrick? It's too early. My initial opinions are that Carrick knows the club. He knows. Carrick played in a title-winning mentality side. Carrick knows. There is no dispute about that. Tactically, I am still not convinced. I don't know, if tactically he's got the nous yet. In the last 3 games, it has been counter-attack FC. He doesn't have the players. Now, if he does have the tactics, does he have the play? So for me, it's a really difficult one right now to judge a manager who's come in with these players. These, in my view, these low IQ, on and off light switch plays. But what he has done, and what he has done extremely well, and this is what Ollie did as well. He's able to get these players to play. So look, that has to count for something. So look, I'm not, I'm not convinced. But look, let's just see. He could grow into the role. If we're not going to invest in this team and Carrick gets us to top 4, the more Carrick wins, the more Carrick adjusts this team. My opinion will shift, but as of now, look, I think he's doing a great job. He's doing a better job than I thought he would be doing. So look, I am open-minded. I am. So look, let's just see what he can do. As Sparrow says, I've fallen out of love with Baleba. He was supposed to be our replacement for Casemiro. He's down tools at Brighton. He can down tools at United. And you know what? I think that's probably one of the best quotes or the best comments. I've always said with a player, right, I don't want a down tools player. And for that reason, let's just imagine he comes to us and he becomes this fantastic player. Madrid come in for him. Let's just say he comes in and we go backwards. We start finishing 6th again, 8th again, and Madrid come in for him. He would probably down tools. So I don't want a player who's going to down tools. I want a player who's going to have that mentality. It doesn't matter where he plays. Even if he doesn't want to play for a Brighton, it's his job, right? So I want a player like a Baleba, and I wouldn't mind paying £80 million for him if he's the best. If he's the best defensive midfielder in the league. And people will say, no, I want players to down tools. But be careful what you wish for. That is not how I want to do business. I don't think that's how I want United to do business. I want the best players. And look, if he continued the form of last season and it was 100 million and we could get him, I'd much prefer an on-form Baleba at 100 million than a down tools Baleba at 60 million. LLG says, I know that he's just moved, but Neres could be a replacement for Dorgu. Can he overcome Tottenham? Let's see. I'm not sure who can do a job for us to see him, but someone who can get around, make a tackle and pick a 4 pass. Now, lucky for you, I've done my homework. I've got a couple of players that I've picked out. I've got a whole list, and I will read out some names. But I've been doing my homework, and I've got a couple of different names out there who are specifically defensive midfielders. Good afternoon, says Ifran. Brown says, who is Roscoe? Roscoe is the 18-year-old we signed for $1 million. Scott is in the house. Yes, JB, sorry, I've been in a meeting. No problem at all, my friend Scott, legend. I think we can survive until summer, even though we didn't sign any players or get rid of any. And look, Simon, I don't disagree. I think that we can... Look, we've got one game a week, right? One game a week. Other than a bad tackle or a breakdown of some of these players who are 30 plus, I think we can. But my only issue here is that I think we've gambled. We've gambled. So for me, instead of saying that we are going to ensure, or the best as we can ensure, to get a top 4 place, we are relying on players not getting injured. Now look, you can argue, and I do accept the argument, we've got one game a week. We've got recovery time, we've got all that stuff. So, it is a gamble, but I don't disagree with your comment, because look, we've got one game a week. We should be able to get into the top, between the top 4, the top 6. We have to get out of this need, whatever. We do have a good base, 3-4 solid players, maybe 3 world class would change the landscape. And look, I think for me, I think we've got a good front line, or a good, you've got Dorgu that's come into it now, Ahmad, Cunha, Mbeumo, Shesko, brilliant. Mainu, right, fantastic. Lacey could come into that. I think our problem, I think the problem is the Luke Shaw position, the left back position. Right back, I think we need a better right back. But look, he could play that centre back for me. You can argue you've got De Ligt to come back, and Martinez in there, and Maguire in there, and Larman. So look, we do have the makings of a good team. But for me, if we want to progress, I think we need to upgrade positions. So look, I'm not worried now about the forward plays. Where I do agree with you, I think we need 2 midfield players. And if we get 2 midfielders, look, an ambitious club. An ambitious club for me would get rid of a Luke Shaw, Maguire, would get rid of those players. And bring in. I think if we brought in another left back, another centre midfielder, another centre back, a right back, you could argue that. Two centre midfielders, that's 4 players. I think with those 4 players, I think you're going somewhere there. If we can avoid more injuries before then, I think we'll be okay. It's when it's an important meeting. Knowing the club and being an ex-player doesn't automatically qualify for success. Now, some of the manager is measured when they are in the pressure cooker, and we are gonna see that. We are going to see that. Our players right now are actually putting in a good shift in our matches under Carrick. Must be his influence, and again, these are the things, Simon, that I think we're going to see. Each game that continues. Look, if Carrick goes on a run of 8 wins, right, just like Ollie, and let's be fair to him here, he had a positive influence on this team. My problem is the long term, which you don't know because you can only judge on the here and now. So I think it's a fascinating debate. Look, if Carrick goes on a run of 8 games and we win every single game, Carrick, the conversation has to be had that maybe Carrick is the real deal. But we're not going to know that until 2 or 3 years' time. I don't have to explain yet. Rashford must stay away from the club. When we needed him, he let us down. And bringing him back just upset the apple cart. People seem to think that Baleba is the best thing since sliced bread. Players, especially for United, must play for the shirt and history for the future. Otherwise, what's the point in signing him? And I agree with that completely. You don't need to be a fan of the club, and I agree with you. I don't even necessarily think you need to play for the badge. I think you need to play for the fans. I think you need to play for your teammate, and I think you need to see it as your job. I think you need to see it as your responsibility. Playing for the club and playing for the badge comes in time, right? I do want to see players who want to play for the badge, but they were you don't always get those players who are fans, right? In the first instance, I want to see the mentality. I want to see players who see this as their job, and when I say job, they give everything, and they give it for their own professional pride. They give it because they want to be the best, and they do it for the fans. Once I see those 3, these players will grow into being fans of the club. You look at Fernandes, right? I'll give him, look, whether or not he's the player that he was, he wasn't a fan of this club. And look, I know he's a stroppy git at times, but he loves this club. He gives it all for the club. Lissandro, he wasn't a fan of the club, but look at him now. He gives it all for the club, and those are the players that I think we need in the first place, and then they grow to love the club. Almost all players are like these days; they play for their career. MUV Spurs. They will win again, I'm sure. Why? I just see the spirit of United is back. Bruno as Paul Scholes in the middle, and the scorer has as many in Burma, Cunha, Shesko, Dorgu, and Ahmad. And look, Neo Tribe, I hope that you're right. I really, really do. And look, long may it continue. We need a DM who can jump and head properly, not just tackle, experienced and established players, not a project player. Do you think we need a specialist 6 since we play a double pivot? Maybe get 2 all-rounders who can share the load. Now, I and Grace, that's where I was going to go with this. Like, I wanted to explore a proper number 6. Do we? And again, that is a very, 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 very good point. Look, I think we need a number 6, or at least a very an all-rounder that leans into a more defensive player. So I think, as I've always said, what I would like to see for me is I'd like to see a more of a centre midfielder who's not a box to box. I don't want 2 box to box unless you're going to have 2 box to box. One goes forward and one comes back. I think there's a danger there. I would like to see more of a centre midfielder or an all-rounder who leans into the defensive aspect, and more of a centre midfielder who is more of an all-rounder who can defend, but he's more of a ball carrier. You could argue Mainu's that, but I think if we sign 2, 9 points and top 4, I'm very happy so far. Said it before, top 4 would be a good result. Top 3, amazing. That's the target. We just need a faster left wing. I'm sure it is Rashford. I noticed you missed out Xerxes. Yeah, I look, Xerxes for me. I like Xerxes, but I look. There comes a time where I've got nothing against him. I think sadly, I think Xerxes is a victim of manager changes. I think Xerxes should go. I don't think Xerxes is an awful player. I actually think that there are players ahead of him that are better than him. We won't get a left back. Ineos will say we've got Shaw, Dorgu, Leon, and Amas. Yes, I do agree. I don't agree with a left back. We can move Lucha to the left if De Ligt is back, and we forgot we have a generational talent in Heaven. I don't agree that Heaven is a look. Again, this is your opinion, Ifran. I'm not disrespecting your opinion. I don't want Martinez as a left back. Personally, he's a left-sided centre back. That's where he should play. He's not a left back, 100% not. For me, generational talent in Heaven, I wholly disagree. Could he grow into one of the best centre backs in the Premier League? Potentially. Do I think he's a generational talent? I don't think he is. Shaw must go. 2 midfielders and possibly a striker. No. Another left back. Heaven proved himself. Is Dorgu injured? Yes, Dorgu is out for 10 weeks. Shaw could easily join a senior citizens team. Is none of you hated the idea of veteran player coach. You said you don't want them anywhere. You hated the idea of a veteran player coach. You said you don't want him anywhere near the team. Carrick isn't a player coach. Carrick, you look different, JB. Did you get your lazy ass to the gym? I went to the gym yesterday. I haven't been today. I am going to go this evening, but I haven't been today, Grace. But thank you for noticing. Thank you for commenting on the change. I don't know what I've done to change, but thank you. You hated the idea of a veteran player coach. I don't know if you mean a player as in a coach who plays and coaches, or whether an ex-player who's a coach. Ideally, Lebawi, I don't. I don't, mate. Look, I don't. If I was picking a coach after an Amorim, Carrick wouldn't have been my choice. I didn't want him, right? But it doesn't matter. I don't get a choice. So it doesn't matter what I want. I hate the idea of it. I do. I will stand by my guns. I dislike the idea of ex-players brigade. But there is nothing that I can do because I don't pick the coach. Whether I've got views on Bruno. Fernandes. Doesn't mean I'm right. Those are my views. I've got views on Luke Shaw. Some people love Luke Shaw. I've got views on this team. I've got views on our position in the league. But doesn't mean that I'm right. I still dislike the idea of player FC. Ollie. Could Carrick be another Ollie? Yes, he could be. But I don't choose the coach, mate. So whether I dislike it or not, it is not up to me. I'll just give you my view. I'll stand by it. But I will also back the manager. You've got to. Unless it's Southgate, I'm never going to back Southgate. But if it's an ex-player, as much as I don't like it, I've got no choice to back it. So look, just because I don't like it doesn't mean I'm not going to support him. Michael Carrick is doing a great job so far. So I think it's going to be rock'em sock'em ball. It's going to be end to end, but that's what we've got. So my opinion hasn't changed, but I've got no choice in it. You looked, yeah, I've done that. See, I don't get it. Shaw has started every one of our league games this season. Maguire is holding the fort since De Ligt broke his back. Why would we sell them now of all times? I don't think we shouldn't sell them now, but Luke Shaw is not good enough. And look, what I keep Luke Shaw as a squad player. Yes. Would I keep Maguire as a squad player on lower wages? Yes. But we do. My argument here is we need to upgrade. Luke Shaw is the past. Is Luke Shaw going to get better? No. I think it's a medical marvel that Luke Shaw is anywhere near this team and is back and fit. I personally think his time is been and gone. Would I keep him as a squad player? Of course I would do. Would I keep Maguire? Yes, because look, we can't get rid of every senior player and expect this to go well. But what my argument here is that these players should be on the cusp. And yes, this season we don't have the players. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful that Luke Shaw is here. Doesn't mean I like him. Doesn't mean that I think he's played particularly well. I don't think he has. But I am thankful that Luke Shaw has been here, and Luke Shaw is doing a good job. I didn't think that Luke Shaw would ever come back in to this side. But Luke, there's a difference. There's a difference, in my view, between looking to the future, not thinking a player is good enough. I don't think he is. But respecting what the players do. I respect Luke Shaw this season. Do I think he's been fantastic? No. He's doing a job. Maguire, was he perfect in the previous games? Has Maguire come in back into the side and doing a fantastic job? Yes. They should reap all the praise and the plaudits this year if we finish in that top 4. Top 3, they should receive all of the plaudits. But going forward, let's not pretend here that Luke Shaw should be the starting left back in next season. Let's not pretend that Luke Shaw is going to be prime Luke Shaw. He's going to be 31, 32 next season. So look, my argument here is that we should be progressing these players. We should be moving these players on, but we can't do. So, I see De Ligt, Xerxes, Dorgu injured. We need players like Dorgu because he's unpredictable. Okay, you two can argue that out. Quite correct. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Play for the fans. Play like you appreciate the status of playing for United, not vibes and self-centered rumours. Tottenham also had many players injured. It's time to make Spurs suffer. This time we can't keep losing. Good afternoon from Ghana. Controversial opinion. Manu over Fernandes. Drop Bruno to the bench and see what we do. I don't disagree. Look, I don't disagree with you. The only thing I'm going to say on that one, and I'm Bruno's biggest critic. Right, I am. Right. My only thing is, in this team, whatever I think of Bruno, there can be no doubt that Bruno provides assists. I'm torn. Look, I have my personal views. I'm not going to call. Look, I'm not here to call these players out as of now. Really, I will comment on positional, but the problem for me is that in this team, if you take Bruno Fernandes, what the problem is, whilst we don't have a Bruno Fernandes replacement, whether my views are positive or negative on him being out impacts the team. So I think right now, whilst I don't disagree with you, I think that to keep the status quo until something drastic happens, I just think we're just going to have to suck it and play this team. Carrick will win the league in 2 years, says Des. Des, I would love you to be right. You know, Des, look, what I would love to happen, is I'd love Carrick to be here for 25 years. I'd love Carrick to go on and win the league. I'd love him to be competitive. But you don't know. And that's the problem. Do I think Carrick can win the league? My logical side would say no. But Carrick is not going to win the league with these players. Mainly is not a CDM. He ventures too far up and not fastest and tallest player around. Yeah, I do agree that he's not a defender. If Manu becomes injured, then surely we play Fletcher, or it won't work, or it won't work out. It must be water. No, it is. It is. It's water. I am not going to drink at 2:10. Let me get through this. If Arsenal and United have X players to manage a club, has Spurs ever done the same? Don't judge Heaven on the centre-back role. He was to play before Shaw became mysteriously available again. Heaven was absolutely solid at left back for one of the players. Look, Heaven. I like Heaven. I've praised that kid. I think whoever signed Heaven should do all of our signings. What a signing! Heaven is a fantastic player. I just don't agree right now that he's a generational talent. I could be wrong. I judge him on what I've seen, and what I've seen is I like him. Sure, it is a bench. Yeah, I do agree. My Bears says United forever. What do I think of Dalot? I think, look, Dalot for me is a functional player. I don't think he's very good defensively. I think he's okay going forward. Dalot gives you a player. Dalot, and what I mean by that is Dalot gives you, he's there. He's available. But to go back to your 2 points, Luke Shaw is okay. Agree with you completely. But I don't want okay. This club is talking about Champions League. This club is talking about league titles. I don't want okay. I want best. I want best in class. I want best in class. And we're not going to win a league with an okay Luke Shaw. You know, it's just not going to happen. So, you know, whilst I do agree that these players are okay, these players are functional. Luke Shaw is a bench player. He's playing first team. I don't want okay. Look, people are talking about a title push. I get that. But we're not going to win a title with Luke Shaw. And that may come back to bite me on the arse. It might do. I don't think it will do. So for me, look, I don't want okay. I want best in class. I want players who could be the best. I want experience, but I don't just want Luke Shaw experience. I want 26-year-old. You know, I want maybe the next big thing. You know, we're talking about maybe another Dorgu, but a proper left back, proper Dorgu type of player. Shaw has been at the club for at least 50 years without a testimonial. Shaw is not Superman or bionic man. Amrin was clueless. If we look back, Irwin and Heinze are the greatest left backs we ever had. That's the benchmark, and I agree with you. I think Heinze was a good player. I think he was a bit of a tosser, to be fair, but I think Evra as well. I think you're missing out Evra. I think if you're looking at the standard, I think you have to look at Irwin. Heinze was okay, and Evra. Behind there is a United. Ugarte should move on as far away as possible. Yep. Can't drop Bruno. He's playing too well. Good day, lad. Just want to say, how many of your jerseys do you actually have in your closet? I think I've probably got about 15, 20, I think now. There is more on the way as well. If you compare Manu and Bruno, it's clear you are hating on Bruno and biased on English players. What will Manu do better than Bruno? Do you even understand the influence of Bruno? Look. All I'm going to say, Ifran, I know it's frustrating, but look, people are going to have their opinions, right? I understand what Bruno Fernandes is. I understand the influence of Bruno Fernandes brings to this team. I know what Bruno Fernandes is and was. Bruno Fernandes, whether you like it or not, is 32 years old. Bruno Fernandes is player FC. Whether he does it on purpose, I don't think he does. But we need to move on from Bruno Fernandes. Look, I'm not bothered. Like, I am not scared if Bruno Fernandes goes. Many of the younger fans are shitting themselves because you've never seen a Dennis Irwin leave, a Peter Schmeichel leave, a Bruce, a Pallister, an Ince, a Keane, a York, a Kanchelskis, a Giggsy retiring, you know, a David Beckham leaving, a Jaap Stam leaving, ever getting too old. Many of you guys, I've not experienced that. I've not experienced title winning, treble winning, Premier League proven, proper players leave the club. Bruno Fernandes, I'm not saying that he's not a fantastic player. I'm not bothered. We've had better players than Bruno Fernandes leave. We need the next, not even saying Bruno Fernandes, because I don't want a player to have as much influence as that. I want a whole team to have influence. I don't just want a Bruno Fernandes who, let's be fair, on the pitch, he's not a leader. I want a team full of leaders. So look, whilst I get it, Fernandes and Manu are different players. Manu, for me, still needs to prove. I don't quite know what he is. I think he still needs to prove it. Bruno Fernandes is one of the, you could argue, one of the best players in the Premier League over the last 6-7 years. But Bruno Fernandes will leave and we will move on as a club. Bruno is Portuguese. Delo is wank. How long have you been streaming for? How long did it take you to get monetized? I'll answer that question. I will do. I've been streaming on here since July. Monetized bit. Don't believe everything you read. Right? This channel's been monetized for 4 months. This channel doesn't really make money. Don't believe that monetization is the biggest thing, right? Because unless you literally get millions of views, you ain't gonna make money. This channel doesn't make money, and I'll be open with you, right? This channel's been monetized for 4 months, right? This channel has earned 175 quid, pretty much, and that's it. So don't believe this whole YouTube stuff, that the monetization stuff. As soon as you earn it, you get thousands of pounds. It is not true. I do this, and I've got a job. I don't do this for money. The channel makes a little bit of money. It literally is even still sat there in the YouTube account. This channel, even though it's had 1.3 million views, it's made about 200 quid. So don't believe it. Do not believe this whole thing because you see a content creator who's monetized. Unless you get millions and millions of views, you literally get pittance. Sky says hi. Right here, right now, we bring 2, maybe 3 from the academy. We sign hopefully 1 with class midfielder. Then maybe, hopefully, we challenge for a league. My son's been chosen to trial for Chelsea academy. I've got to pay for him to do trials until June. I may have to turn into a Chelsea fan. Bruno is the pass before the goal, even at 32. Phil Wood says, who wore the number 7 and regarded the best in your opinion? Who is the best number 7? I've got to say that the most iconic number 7 for me is George Best. Like I never saw George Best play. I've seen George Best in clips, but for me, whenever I think of a number 7, I always think of George Best. And for whatever reason, a ridiculous reason, I just think for me, George Best was a maverick, right? Proper maverick, ahead of his time, an absolute head of his time. Now, if you ask me different players, I would probably go for my players of the 90s. But for me, whenever I think of a number 7, I always go back to George Best. Now, and I've seen countless videos, I never saw him play, but for me, whenever I think of a number 7, it's George Best. Bloody hell, Kanchelskis, what a player I would kill for a team of his clones. Kanchelskis, absolute, I love Kanchelskis, brilliant. Probably Kanchelskis, I'd probably argue Kanchelskis probably very, very underrated. Probably say Kanchelskis was probably the best Russian player, maybe, of all time. What I'm referring to is comparing Main and Bruno by dropping Bruno and see what happens. Look, I'll let you guys argue that. We had a player like Trincao to replace Bruno, but Ineos decided they don't want to pay. Then even Rios, who's available. We don't need a project player to replace Bruno. I'll let you guys do that. Here's a genuine question. Which squad do you think is better, Liverpool's or United, and what would be the starting mixed 11s? I think that okay, on paper, who has the best squad? I think on paper, Liverpool nick it, because I think their midfield and their defence on paper is better. If I was, and this is probably going to be biased. Larman's for me in goal. I would probably say, and if we're talking about overall, I would probably go left side would probably be Frimpong. Luke Shaw. That's a hard one, I'll leave the left back. I think De Ligt, when he's fit, is fantastic. But do you go Van Dijk, De Ligt, or Van Dijk and Lissandro? I don't know. I wonder if he's a bit of a spent force. So I would go Robertson on the right. Kirkes, I don't think has been fantastic. I would go Robertson. I know he's gonna leave. Robertson on the right. I'd argue Van Dijk is not the player that he was. So I'd probably go De Ligt when he's fit. De Ligt, Martinez, Larmans. I'd probably go Robertson on the right because I don't think Kirkes is great and our right back is not great. Mazraoui, you could argue that, but I don't think he's been particularly good this season. And on the left, I don't know. On the left, I really don't know. Down the middle, Szoboszlai, easy for me. Szoboszlai for me, fantastic player. In that 8 role, that's a hard one again. What's his name? Not Enzo. What's his name? My brain's gone. I think the pair. I think Gravenberch as well. So I probably go Gravenberch as the more of the defensive midfielder. I'd probably go Szoboszlai as the 8. I'd go Bruno in that 10 as well. What's that? 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I would go Ahmad, Mbeumo, Ekitike. I think Ekitike is slightly better up front. Cunha has got a shout as well. I'd go Ekitike. Mbeumo, you could argue Cunha, but I just think our front players at the moment are doing better than Liverpool's. I would go Ekitike as a striker if you're going to play striker. Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, but Bruno Fernandes he's in there. Left back, I don't know. Number 7 in the modern era has to be Cantona. I don't disagree. Don't lie, JB. You was the first ever game. Morning from Toronto. Hope you start making fat snacks with your channel. Fat stacks. I respect anyone that's spending money and making an effort to entertain. Look, I don't do this for money. Now I'm very open. Look, the first, if this channel ever makes enough for me to do this full time, then it's not just going to be me that will benefit. I've got lofty plans, but at the end of the day, it's not about money. But thanks, buddy. I've seen the best of United from Gordon Strachan to Whiteside, McGrath, Captain Fantastic. I'm talking before Fergie even won the league. That's how long I've been a supporter. Ifran, mate, legend. Manu is more of a CM, full stop. Over Allison, Frimpong plays right back. Is Kirkes left back? Let's have a look. Roberts. Well, then Robbo left. I'd go Robbo left then. I'd go Robbo left. Right side. I'd go Robertson left then. On the right, Frimpong. It's difficult. Right back, I don't know. Left back then is easy for me. Is Mazraoui better on the right than Frimpong? And that is the question. Frimpong is right back, Robbo is left. Cool. Manu is not a CDM. He could be the midfield dictator, the one that dictates the play, the metronome. Do you know your left from your right? Yes, mate. I do, mate. I do. I think we're also in a title race. McAllister, yes, but I think Gravenberch as more of a defensive midfielder. McAllister's a great player, but I just prefer Gravenberch as more of the defensive midfielder because he is more of a defensive midfielder, and Szoboszlai as the number 8. If Licha partnered version Van Dijk, they would win trebles. Those through balls from Lucha insane. Verts and Ekitike would benefit immensely. I'll make Liverpool squad complete. Hello. Slightly biased, you say. Appreciate your answer, even if I strongly disagree. Look, mate, you're entitled to disagree. Am I slightly biased? Probably. Probably. I am, but I'm going on current form. I'm going on current form. We have first class front line. It's the service that's lacking. We love you, JB. Kyle Walker is still a good right back. He's just in a poor team. So look, let's go through. I'm going to name, and look, just for life is probably gonna and like I like that. I don't mind people holding me to account. I've got no issue at all, you know, and look, we don't have to agree. So look, when we're talking about defensive midfielders, so I've got a list, and I've picked out 4 players, and I picked out four players. Bias is a good thing. It promotes debate, and look, this is what it's about. I appreciate Liverpool have got good players, but they've not been good this season. Kanchelski's played and scored 3 goals for old school Soviet Union. Yes, he did. Not Russia. I meant, you know, the USSR. Okay, so when we're looking at midfielders, now I think it really depends on where you're going to go. So Bruno G, I think for the Geordies. Now look, I think he's a fantastic player. The problem for me, and look, we can mention that player. You know, we can mention an Anderson. 28, I think, would be very, very expensive. Gravenberch is never going to come. Tchouaméni, I think, is an interesting one at 26 years old. Would you believe Ugarte is in the top 6? But look, you've got Baleba in there. You've got Vermeeren. I can't pronounce his name now. Santos, I think, is up there as well. Now, what about Garner? James Garner to come back. You know, when I'm thinking about the CDM position, I think we possibly need 2 in terms of, I think we need 3 midfielders. You've got Kobe Mainu, and then that's 4. I don't think we're going to get two world class or 2 of that ilk, right? Santos, I like that as well. I think we need players like a Garner. There's and again, I've got a whole list of players here. I'm not necessarily going to read those on that because I'm not going to read out players that I don't know. Ndidi's up there as well, by the way, but no, thank you. You've got so there's a player. I'll come on to him first. So and I have seen him play actually. And I'm going to bring someone else into it as well. So there's a young guy. Let me find him. Where is he? I do have him on my list of players. I have been doing homework. Ray says hello. I have been doing my homework, and I do have my list of shit. So there's 4 players. One is, as I've just said, is Arthur Vermeeren or Vermeeren. Now, I have seen him play. So the reason why I bring him in is because 20 years old. And again, I think we need he plays for, he's on loan at Marseille. And the reason why I mention it is because he's on loan from RB Leipzig. Now, we all know we have links into Leipzig. Defensive midfielder, 20 years old. He's literally going to be 21 years old. So he's now just coming out of that sort of younger player. He is 1.8 meters tall. So what's that? 6'1", I think it is. He's overall performance this season. He wins 70% of his tackles. He is quite an advanced defensive midfielder. Let me give you some more of his stats. And look, is he perfect? No. So he wins 50% of his duels. aerial duels, and this is coming back to your point about Casemiro as a good header of the ball. He wins 50% of the duels. He wins 50% of the headers. 19 interceptions, 58 recoveries. His success is he's got good anticipation. He wins the ball. He's a very high. He wins the tackles, not dominant in the air. Locatelli as well. I will come on to that as well. So look, he's a young guy. I think he'd be quite expensive, but look, he is a ball winner. His anticipation is great. He's active in duels. His work rate is high, but he's not great in the air. So, 21 years old, and for me, look, the reason why I mention it is because I know that he's a decent player. I have seen him play. I know he's really well thought of. It's the Marseille bit. He's on loan at Marseille, on loan from Leipzig. He's coming into that age where, do you take a punt on him? I think for me, would he be a first teamer? I think you could argue a Roscoe, but I think for me, I think that he would be a sort of a Brighton signing. He would be that sort of signing that they would go and get, and he would potentially be the next big thing. So I like him. He's from Belgium as well. So I think he's one of those outsiders for me that I like him. I do like him. I think he's got decent stats, and for me, that's one I've picked out. Now, again, I've picked out another Belgian player that we talk about a lot on here, and I do agree that I like him a lot. Is Ampadu Onana. Ampadu Onana, I think for me, Ampadu Onana is, I think he's 195. So it's at 6'4", 6'5". I think he's proved it. 24 years old as well. So let's have a little look. Ryan, mate, you've got to go, Ryan, mate. You can't be abusing the community, buddy. You've got to go for a bit, mate. So Ryan is on a timeout. Sorry, bud. You've got to be set on a timeout, my friend. You can't be abusing the chat, my friend. Ray says, hello, Ray. Everyone wanted Ndidi when he was at Leicester City. Casemiro set the bar. Good header, good passer, good shooter, football IQ, good defensively. Please bring your player with all those qualities in at 24 and 5, and we're in business. I don't disagree, but those are expensive. And is your list based on our policy? No, my list is based on. I've gone and looked at the top 100 or the top 100 defensive midfielders, and I've just compiled a list. And look, I've got it from a well-known defensive midfielder list all the way through to younger, and kind of those ones that are on the cusp as well. Locatelli says, yeah. Morgan Rogers, I do like him as well. Juventus are a Milan side. Those are Bosley better than all the midfielders. Not another Onana. Why we got the Varane smile. JB, we have had all the loan situation. Should we take multiple loanees? It's arguable we should, given injuries. Should we have to look? I think we needed numbers. I think we needed two. I think we needed a loanee for the midfield. I just think we need numbers. You know, we can't just have an Ugarte sat in there. You know, if Casemiro gets injured, he's 34 years old. I think we should have got some loanees in. But, you know, look, I don't make up the rules. You know, I would have, and it wouldn't have been expensive. I don't know. And the rhetoric that's coming out, and I've seen it again this morning. United, and this is again football. Footballer Banana says hi, hello. The rhetoric I've seen this morning and people doing this for clickbait. Look, fuck's sake. Honestly, what is wrong with people? I've seen this morning, Baleba. We were gonna put in an offer for a big midfielder, but we didn't. It doesn't matter. I don't care if we were gonna buy an Anderson. We didn't buy an Anderson. It is bullshit. We didn't buy an Anderson because we couldn't afford an Anderson. Ridiculous. So Ampadu Onana. I like Ampadu Onana. I do. I really do. 24 years old. I like him. 26 appearances, 2 goals. You know, he is a defensive midfielder. Gains the ball and tackles. His recovery on the ball, I think is good. An aerial. So this is where Ampadu excels for me. Is he wins 80% of his aerial duels. I like that. I really do. His passing is 80% complete. His aerial duels are 80% complete. Obviously, he doesn't create chances. I like his physicality. I do. I like his physicality. 67 tackles. His volume is great. High defensive work rate as well. I like it. You know, he's a very active player. If you're looking, in my view, Ampadu, if you're looking at a Premier League experience, a vast Premier League experience of 24, very tall, very good in the air. On that list, JB, who is the best CDM in the world? According to my list, Rodri is number 1. Guimarães, Gravenberch, Tchouaméni, you've got Baleba on there, Bentancur's on there, Declan Rice is on there, Neves is on there, Casido is on there, Casemiro is on there. Who else is on there? Obviously, other than the more obvious ones as well. You've got a Tillemans is on there. Who else is on there? A Fabinho, Paulinho is on there. A Barella is on there as well. Sangara's on there as well. I've asked for a mixed up list. United is a shithole club who lives on the past, says Dennis. Thanks, mate. Thanks, mate. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that, buddy. So, look, Ampadu Onana for me, I think is one of those ones that I would consider. And I think is it what it is? We need to strengthen our bench. And when we're talking about this, right? I think we are looking to build. We need to build a squad. You know, we're not a City. No, Liverpool were in a position, where they got Szoboszlai. They won the league. Camavinga is on the list as well. Are we in that position? Do we go by one? Do we go get a Camavinga? Do we go and get that sort of player? We do need a Declan Rice. Is Declan Rice an exclusively defensive midfielder? No. A Lavia, a Casado. Those are the sorts of players that we need. I think we need the next Kante. We need the next Makalele. Those are the players to me that I think that we need to go and get. But Lavia Firmino is one of those players, injured but never going to leave. But I think we need the likes of an Onana and Ampadu. Onana, 24 years old, Premier League proven player. Is he going to be the guy that you bring in because he is the best of the best? In my opinion, probably not. But we do need those sorts of players. We do need those sorts of players. Another one on my list as a bit of an outsider is, and I brought him in because I think it's an interesting one. And I'm going to destroy the pronunciation. So, Leslie Ugo Chikawu, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Ugo Chukwu, I think that's his name. Leslie, and look, he plays for Burnley. He's French. Again, very tall, rangy. Defensive midfielder for Burnley. Look, again, 21 years old. For me, those are the sorts of players that I think that we need to look at. Again, 23 appearances this season, so starting to get those appearances in the Premier League. As a player type, wins 60%. It does. In terms of a defensive duel, he wins 60%. Aerials, he's not great. Wins 40% of those. Wins 60% of his interceptions. Again, very, very strong presence. Good at interceptions. Physically, he's a physical guy. Now, look, the reason why I bring him in, that sort of player, Premier League proven player. Is he better than an Ugarte? Would he be an expensive player? No. 21 years old. Look, we can't always go for a, we can't always go for these, super world class, excellent players. Does he cluck, JB? He probably does cluck, mate. Another player, Sander Berge. Sander Berge, again, these are the players. So we're going to look for a player that is not an upgrade on Casemiro, where age is only the upgrade. We're going to sit here and say Garnet is an upgrade. No, Ifran. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that these players are there to replace a Casemiro. I'm not saying that these players are there to be our number one pick. Our number one pick should be a Wharton. Our number one pick should be an Anderson. Number one pick, should be a Baleba if he's on form. Another player should be a Camavinga. I want one of those, more of those experienced Champions League, Premier League proven, one of those better players. Those are the players. Nikarutsu is in the other house, legendary player. We need one of those players. That's a fact. But we're not going to get a team full of those players. We're just not. So if we could go and get an Anderson and a Baleba, fantastic. But we are going to need an Ampadu, an Arna. We are going to need another midfielder of that type. And yes, I think Orozco can come in to this side. But I think you build Orozco into the side. The problem for me is that we then stick these players on a bench and there's no platform to come in. Imagine this. We get an Anderson, a Wharton, a Camavinga, etc. to come into the midfield. Fantastic. Right, we've got a Manu in there as well. Ugarte isn't good enough. So then let's just say we get Champions League. Right, fantastic. We're going to need 4, possibly 5. So if you've got your starters, let's just say we go all out and we go Stiller and Anderson. Let's just say we go more defensive and we go and get an expert in there. Let's just say we go and get one of these. Let's just say we go and get a Camavinga type, right? And then we go get an Anderson type, right? So we've got our 2 starting, right? Are they going to play all season? No. Are we then going to try to challenge for the Premier League? Possibly. We're going to need an Ampadu. We're going to need a Sander Berge. We're going to need those Premier League proven decent players, because if we have 60 games a season, you can't consistently, you can't play those players all of the time. You're going to have to mix and match. But then you have an Orozco that sat on a bench. Maybe you bring in a Ghana. So you've got your 2 first choice centre midfielders. You've then got your John O'Shea. You've got your Premier League proven player who's not going to set the world on fire, but he's still going to be good. Anana would be expensive. Maybe Anana wouldn't be the guy, but if you could get him at a good price, you bring him in. So my vision of a midfield is you have your 2 first choices, your 2 best in classes, but you support that with Premier League proven players, and then you bring in an Orozco, because then you can have an Orozco on the bench. There's no pressure on him to play. Imagine if we get 1 centre midfielder, Ugarte stays, Manu, and we've got an Orozco, right? Orozco's going to have to come into this team at 18 years old, and he's going to be a first teamer. Who's going to teach him? And Manu can't teach him, really. Ugarte can't teach anything. And Anderson possibly could, but Anderson is still going to take time. I don't think Anderson fully appreciates this club yet. So we're going to need more than that. So look, I'm not saying that these are going to be, this mixture of different style of plays, different ages. I'm purposefully not talking about a Baleba. I'm purposely not talking about a Wharton and Anderson again, because they always get a mention, always. So I think we need to be open, I think, and I think we need to be looking not only at these more world-class types, but I think we need to be looking at the Sander Berges, the Ananas, the Chikawukus. But that's me. Do we have anyone coming through the youth that could do a job? I know we've got Orozco, Kone as well. Kone. Could Kone? People have been banging on about him for a long time. Could Kone come back into this as well? But in terms of a midfielder, in terms of that sort of midfielder, I've not really heard a lot. But you guys can tell me. We can build, but it's a big but. We need to do what we do best: a mixture of youth experience and maybe one and yes, and that's exactly my point. Baleba is not a CDM. Look, Baleba I don't mind. Well, Baleba is not a centre midfield, is he? Baleba is a centre midfielder who is more defensive. I don't mind a centre midfielder. So to me, Baleba is not exclusively a CDM, but his attributes are a CDM. So I would buy him, and again, it really depends, Ifran, in our views, right? Do you want an exclusive number 6, or are we doing, as I think Wilcox is trying to do, is have more the versatile type of centre midfielder? So Baleba for me, whilst I think he leans more into a CDM. If you look at his stats, he's very, very defensive, and his defensive stats are very, very good. So I'd lean into, he's definitely more of a defensive CM, and I don't mind that. If we can't get an exclusive CDM, we are going to have to start looking, in my view, at more of a versatile centre midfielder that leans into a CDM. Okay, what if Anderson's qualities compared to Casemiro's Roscoe are a replacement? Maybe give Casemiro an extension to give Roscoe. Ifran, mate, look, Casemiro has to go. Look, I completely respect what you're saying, right? I don't think Anderson is not a Casemiro. Casemiro is not prime Casemiro. Casemiro is different to what he was. You can't teach Casemiro's you can't teach that experience. You can't teach. You can teach positional. You can teach that, but you can't teach what Casemiro does. It's like you can't teach a mentality. You can't teach pace, right? You can learn to become fast, but you can't teach that. You can't teach speed. You can't teach a mindset. You can learn a mindset, but you can't really teach that. What Casemiro does is exclusive to Casemiro. We can't give Casemiro. Orozco is not going to become Casemiro if he's learning from Casemiro for a year. I do agree that Anderson for me, people are banging on about him. I think we need a Baleba type. I'm not saying that he's going to be the guy, but I think we need that sort of player. But look, now I'm not disrespecting the opinion. I just don't think keeping Casemiro for a year and bringing in a Roscoe as an apprentice is going to work, mate. I just don't. Hi, Steve Jobs. Thank you. Exactly. I don't buy the cliche of proven players. It's lazy. Again, look, I think that is a valid point, Ifran. I think that is a valid point, right? But how many players come into the Premier League? There is not many players who come into the Premier League. And if you've spoken to, and again, Ifran, my friend, I promise you, I think your opinion is a valid view. I don't always like it, but if you look at all the players, and to go back to the Dorgu thing, Dorgu's been here for 2 seasons, mate. It wasn't like Dorgu came in and Dorgu has been fantastic. Dorgu came in, and this is Dorgu's 2nd season. He's been put in the right position, and he's got better because he's got Premier League experience. Wirtz has come into the league. He's been dog shit. Wirtz has been absolutely dog shit. He's come into the league and he's now starting to get better. Haaland, you could have that all day with Haaland. Rodri, you could argue that, but I think there are limited cases where people come into the league and suddenly become the best in class. Caicedo took time. Enzo Fernandez, he took time. Gyökeres is taking time. Šeško is taking time. And I'm not saying that these players are the best, but where I disagree with you, we need a platform to bring in players. I don't disagree with you, by the way. I don't think we need Premier League proven players to bring into the squad, but you've got to have a squad of Premier League players to bring in that. You know, the reason why Wirtz now works is because he had McAllister. He's got McAllister as a Bosley, right? You can bring him into that. We don't have that. Casemiro is going to leave. I think we need a bedrock of Premier League proven players, and they don't have to be expensive. So you can bring in players from an outside. You could bring in a Wirtz. You know, if you bring in a Stiller, will Stiller work potentially? But I think there is more of a case to say that these players don't work. It definitely depends on who leaves and players bring in. We know we need a 6. What position we offload to replace is the question. If we get Champions League, then yes, we need two midfielders and half a dozen for the bench. Exactly. It sounds so different each time you pronounce the player's name. Went from one play to sounding like triplets. Offload plays is early. Roscoe or nothing. We're playing Champions League. The pressure is on United to replace Casemiro. Look, it's not Roscoe or nothing for me. Irrespective of whether we get to the Champions League or not, we've got to replace Casemiro. Absolutely. Corn says Anderson Baleba combo would be perfect. Do we say to Barca, you've got a CDM instead of 30 million to Rashford? If they've got a CDM that works, why not? Paul James Owen says, get business done early with a club this size. The organisation needs to be quick and efficient. You know, I'd always had tall physical CM, always since we moved to tiny short players. Our whole profiling went out the window. If you want a good DM, take the qualities of Cass. Good header is important. Baleba can't jump. We have had quite a good DM coming through. We need an established players. I want hungry. Paul, I love this. I want hungry, horrible bastards from the next window who played in their positions, put in a shift, Bowen and Mitama. Paul, I love that. I want horrible bastards. I want horrible, nasty players who are awful to play against. Agree with you. Replacing Casemiro will be an upgrade in energy and a downgrade in experience. So Fergie had 4 apprenticeships, mate, and 1 a treble. I disagree with you. What apprentices did he have? I disagree with you, Ifran. He didn't. What apprentices? Paul Scholes had been there for some time. Paul Scholes was one of the best in the world at what he did. David Beckham was one of the best. I can't remember who else. Neville, Nicky Butt, you know, all those sorts of players. He didn't have 4 apprentices, mate. By the time 99 come round, those players were established first team players, mate. PL is the most brutal league in the world. Time to acclimatise. They can be the world's best, but they have to. Dorgu is technically half a season. If we have 1 full season, then second. Dorgu is not half a season, is he? Look, Dorgu is not like half a season. If Fran, mate, I am not having that. Dorgu is not half a season. Dorgu is 18 months. Dorgu is now Premier League experience, mate. That is, Ifran, that is a shallow argument, my friend. Dorgu is 18 months in. I'm sorry, buddy. That is shallow. We have to make CL to have the best chance of winning. No argument. Solid base. I agree. Let's have a little look. We wanted to bring in Villa striker because he's Premier League proven. We must remember United is a special club. We present nuance. The red jersey is more than a red shirt. Ifran, I don't disagree, buddy. Bowen would be good. Casemiro came in and was a horrible player. The referees killed his aura. Those were your apprentices you just mentioned. They didn't walk into the team unless we have a different understanding of what apprentice is. We do, mate. But by the time, I understand what you're saying, but apprentice means to me they've come in the season. I understand. I think what you mean is that they came through the youth academy, right? But when Fergie won the treble, he didn't win it with an Orozco. He didn't win it with players who weren't Premier League proven. Beckham, Scholes, Butt, Neville were Premier League proven, which sort of goes against what you're saying is you don't buy Premier League players, right? But David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Neville, Nicky Butt, they were apprentices that came through, but they weren't apprentices. Like, they were academy players, but they were established, mate. It wasn't like they came into the side and suddenly within a season they were good. They were senior pros pretty much. By the time they came into the squad, they were senior pros. So I'm going to go in a second, guys. Says they were established first team. Yes, they were academy, but exactly, I do agree. XD Wave says, good afternoon, JB. Which footballers will join Galatasaray? I don't know. Okay, guys, I'm saying it. Bruno Fernandes, Ballon d'Or this year. Jesus Christ, Spotify. I hear you on Neville Scholes button. Look, Ifran, mate. Look, Ifran, it is not about conceding, buddy, mate. I am not here to change your mind, my friend. I respect your view, mate. Ifran, I promise you, mate. I am not here to change your view. I'm not here to win an argument. That is not my job. I'm not here to try to change your mind, mate. Portugal would need to win the World Cup. So look, guys, I am going to go. I do have to shoot off. I do have a child to pick up from school. Look, I do. Ifran, mate, you put in some fantastic chats, like as you you all do, and I really do like the debate, and Ifran, mate, look, I am not here to change people's minds. Look, guys, the point is debate. We all have our different views, and I'm just here to basically chat, guys. You are legends. Catch you later. Thursday will be fun. Exactly. So look, guys, I won't be back tonight. Wednesday, I don't do a Wednesday show. Different things to do. But look, guys, you are legends. Like, massive thank you to the supporting the channel. I always say this channel is nothing without you guys. I appreciate the debate. I think look, I think you guys are intelligent, and I don't mean that in a like a blasé way. You guys are. And look, legendary guys. So I will be back tomorrow. If anything does break, I will come back on. Of course I will do. But look, have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening. You are legends. I really do appreciate you and thank you for the support. Have a good afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm JB. This is the United Devil channel, and I see you legends tomorrow. Take care, guys.